Get choked out. It's good for you. It's good for the soul. It's good to wake up in a hot mess and not know where the last 10 seconds of your life just went. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Talking Filthy. I'm here with my good friend, Justin. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to rap a little bit about jiu-jitsu as a cop, jiu-jitsu as a person, and then just whatever comes to mind, which you and I frequently, it can go sideways really quickly. So welcome to the show, and give us a little bio about yourself.
My name's Justin. I'm an Aries.
Nice. Long walks on the beach.
Yeah, hiking. So I'm an old man at 41. I've got the body of a 90-year-old thanks to jiu-jitsu.
That is one downside of jiu-jitsu.
This is a huge downside. You get up and you got to walk around for 5 minutes before your body warms up to actually function. Yeah, it's
the
great.
Upside is jiu-jitsu members don't talk about it as much as fucking CrossFit members.
Yeah, but don't give us that much credit. It's still a cult. It's just kind of word of mouth, but not.
There is a special room in each gym that only members know about.
No, yeah.
It's called the shower.
Yeah. Everyone knows about it. Everyone's in there.
Yeah, so you've been a cop?
Yeah, I've been a cop for coming on 17 years.
So you're no rookie.
Yeah, that's debatable.
Yeah, rookie to someone, right?
Yeah, to someone. I still make a bunch of mistakes, but making mistakes, you're kind of in the wrong job,
Yeah, for sure. So you train, that's kind of one of your things, train personally and you also train professionally.
Correct.
That's what you do for a living, is you teach cops how to defend themselves, how to apply force adequately and appropriately.
Right. And part of that is teaching them how to fight. And it's kind of, in this day and age with police brutality and all that stuff going on, it's counterintuitive that if you teach a cop how to fight, they seem to use less force. And a lot of that boils down to stress management. I'm sure we can talk for hours about that. But as you train them to fight, they get more confidence and, they get in better shape. And eventually, using force is not that sexy,
Right.
And I think when you know how to use it, you know how to use it properly, you don't use it as much.
Yeah. I think stress management and for my personal experience, confidence. I know what I can do to you. I don't need to prove a point here. And I think that does go a long way in that business. So there's been an uptick in the last, I don't know, it seems to me last 15 years maybe with jiu-jitsu in general, MMA fighting, that type of thing. And then there's been specifically, I want to say, post-Ferguson 2014, an uptick in the application of jiu-jitsu as it relates to law enforcement and their training, correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Because I know prior to 2014, jiu-jitsu, other than you had a few people that I worked with that were black belts and they owned gyms, it was kind of an unheard thing. And really, it seemed like cops didn't want to mess with that. Like, why would I roll around with a guy? That sounds stupid. Why don't I just knock his teeth out? In that day and age, that's the logic in their mind, is why would I roll around with this guy? And I thought that way too until I met you and we started training and we started doing stuff, and I realized quickly one thing that stood out. You don't have shit for game when it comes to that. Yeah, you can shoot, you can fist fight, but actually controlling someone that's a lesser threat, my game was really off. So I think there's a huge need for that in law enforcement, especially now. So what do you recommend? What do you think law enforcement nationally needs to do right now?
So I think the focus needs to not shift completely from boxing and karate and it's just a lot
striking.
A lot of outdated training models in there. Because back in the 80s and 90s when all this stuff was developed, they brought in Aikido and there's some elements of wrestling, but not a lot. It took a lot for us to get sprawling into the manual because it was the idea of ground fighting, ground survival. They don't want to say ground fighting because it sounds scary, but it's all semantics.
It's because it is.
Yeah.
When you're rolling around with another human being on the ground who wants to get away from you, it has an element of danger in it.
Yeah, and like ground survival, maybe it's because when you go to the ground, it is kind of survival mode, but it's still a fight on the ground.
Yeah.
But sprawling it's super basic. I learned it in 7th grade wrestling. Like it's not scary, and the idea from the state was, well, just don't go to the ground. It's the abstinence method.
Cool. Yeah, that works every time.
100% of the time. The safest way to ski is don't ski.
Don't go downhill. Just stand at the top.
Super easy. Just buy the gear and hang out at the
with all the chicks at the rec center.
Yeah, it's super easy. And what I found when I got into jiu-jitsu was, it's a car crash. And I've got no control, and somehow the other vehicle involved, they can crash me however they want. And it made no sense to me. And part of the population that begins jiu-jitsu, they feel that, and they're like, I don't like this, and they bail. And the other half is like, well, how do I crash into cars this way? And that's what happened to me. I was gassed after 4 minutes of a 5-minute round. I had nothing left. And the other guy's like, cool, I guess I'm going to go roll with someone else. And I just sat there looking at all these other guys rolling.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I rolled, I was like a minute in, and you were doing the timer. And I probably looked and smelled and felt like a hot, sweaty pig that was dying on its back. And I just realized, obviously I don't have any talent at the sport, but I also don't have any stamina. And it's amazing, the grip. The other parts of your body that you're activating that you don't realize are maybe not as effective as you think they are for that long. When I say long, I'm thinking 2 or 3 minutes into a fight, because the average fight's 20 seconds in law enforcement.
Right.
So I learned really quickly there's a stamina, part of this that really needs, and stress management was, I think, the founding portion of that control.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first get in there, and they pass your guard or whatever you want to call it at that stage, like your legs are in front of you, all of a sudden they're not, and the guy gets side control and starts pressuring in, and you can't breathe. And you can, like it's not like they're choking you immediately, but they just put pressure on your chest, and all of a sudden you're in panic mode. You're like, I don't like this. I need to get out of here. And you start flailing around, and then all of a sudden your arm is being disconnected from your body.
Yeah, your ears are partners with their ankles, and you feel like you're in a porno, and you don't know how you got here, and it's not a good porno.
Yeah,
it's just not.
You're not even getting paid.
You're not getting any money out of this shit. And I learned really quickly, and it was just, to me, it was intriguing too to watch someone that's been doing it for a while. And we're gonna go through classifications. I call the white belt, blue belt, from my perspective, and what each level kind of represents in the talent. And for me, the white belt goes all out, wants to destroy everything, and is done in 45 seconds. And usually injures themselves and their partners, whoever they're rolling with.
Yeah, it's like my first time with a lady,
Yeah. 45 seconds, someone's injured, and it's not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, no one enjoyed it.
And you're questioning yourself, do I want to keep doing this? Because this is the third fucking time this week this has happened. And but from a white belt standpoint, new person in the game, I can say stay with it, because there is gold at the end of the rainbow with this thing when you get probably past 6 months, and when you start really learning to manage your calm. And I'm using a time frame, because if you say 3 to 4 times a week is if you're training and you're active, that's probably how long it's going to take you to get confident. Some faster, some less. But watching a blue belt, a purple belt, and I had a brown belt and a black belt that I've gone with, and it was just like I got tangled up, and they made it look like a hot knife through butter, and I was kind of chump change for them. And watching that confidence in them was really, really cool to see, and that's what kind of sparked my interest in the game.
Yeah, being a white belt, my old coach said you're going to be the nail before you're the hammer, and I was the nail 3-4 times a week. I think I got my first submission on another white belt. It took about 3 months, and I rode that high for another 3 months. Because, the submissions aren't always there, when you're brand new. And you think that's the end game is, well, I need to submit this guy. And it's really not.
Yeah.
if you look at the big picture, you're probably going to quit. You're like, how am I going to submit this black belt? It's like, well, you've got 10 years.
10 years and thousands of hours to get there.
And then you're going to get this guy. Because it's not, when I was a white belt and my coach at the time was a black belt, it's not like he stays at that level while I progress. You progress and he progresses.
Right.
So you might not get that guy ever, you know?
Yeah, he's at Jedi level learning to be fucking Yoda every
Right.
day, and you're still little Anakin.
Right.
With the dark side. Yeah.
And so it was the little wins that got me. It's like, hey, I passed someone's guard today. I did this. I maintained side control. You know, I stalled long enough to not throw up after class. You know, that was my goal. And if you have those little wins, eventually a big win happens, and you're like, oh, cool. You know, but at the end of the day, like just keep going. That's all you need to do.
I remember sitting there with you and just completely defeated. I hadn't got anything successful, a move, lasted in a round. And I think there's a part of the sport, the art, that it's an etiquette, if you will, and it's kind of an unsaid rule. It feels like that to me, is you're going to get your ass kicked for 6 months to a year. And that's what qualifies you to go to the next place in that, is that dose of humbleness, where if you come in there cocky with any kind of experience in anything, everyone gets leveled out. Yes. For that first 6 months. Everyone. I don't give a It's almost like the black belts all know, okay, this hot shot thinks he's going to do this. And I think it's a right thing to do. I think it's an absolute right move to do, especially in law enforcement. A big dose of humble pie is super, super delicious and rewarding at the end. But
yeah,
it tastes like shit at first.
Yeah,
bad.
It does. And you'll have guys that, you know, college wrestlers, they'll come in and they've been training since they were like a zygote, and they're amazing in their sport. Well, it's a different sport, right? It still has some of the same elements, a lot of the same elements, but
they train to stay off their back, and
right.
Jiu-Jitsu trains to be on their back easily and fight their way out. That's a big difference, right? That I saw in wrestling.
Yeah, and you'll find new wrestlers that they'll do stuff, or new Jiu-Jitsu practitioners that were wrestlers. They'll get swept, they'll land on their back, and just instinctively they'll roll to their stomach, and then you choke them out. And they're like, what just happened? You know? And it's trying to shake that old
years of training.
Sport,
yeah.
And then you're coming in this new one.
Right.
But I find there's the ones that I've come across, they're either like, okay, I love this, and they're going to stay, and they just fight through, you know, that deprogramming phase. But some of them, they get beat at this new game, and they're like, well, I don't like this. I'm going to go back to the old.
What I was good at. Yeah.
And it's a shame, because wrestlers, they're the ones that give me the most problems. Even as white belts, they're around for a couple months. Once they figure out, hey, maybe when I shoot a single leg, I shouldn't have my head on the outside, so I don't get guillotined. You know. Once they figure out the nuances, like they're
super fast at moving too.
Right.
Yeah.
Their gas tank lasts for days. Yeah. They're just trouble, you know. And so if they can check the ego for a little while, they'll get the hang of it, and now they've got two sports that they're complete animals at.
Right. So you're a purple belt right now, working on your brown belt.
Correct.
How much longer you think? I know it's never a time given, but
for my brown belt,
yeah, you've been working on it for a while.
Hinted that I should go to the next promotion ceremony. That I need to go there.
Oh, congrats! That's awesome. Hopefully that.
Yeah, it
pans out.
Another stripe.
Yeah, right.
I really enjoy being a purple belt, because I think I don't want to say like I'm competition level, you know, because I'm basically a hobbyist. I like just going. I like the physical aspect of it. I like the camaraderie, the family, and I love instructing. And as a purple belt, there's really no stress, because the guys that come to my class, there's black belts that come, and they're not nitpicking about anything. They're not saying, well, you did this wrong. So I'll ask, hey, did you notice anything or anything to add? And they'll clean up some stuff, because black belts, they just know more than I
right.
do. By going through all that as a purple belt, one, it's helping me out immensely, you know, and that's preparing me to be better as a brown belt. But there's no stress. Like, as a brown belt, like, people are already trying to take my head off when they see that I've got a purple belt. once the brown belt goes on, like, okay.
Yeah, it
just
seems
gets
to me
worse
like
and worse because people need to try harder. The white belts want to impress the black belt, so they're going to go harder on the black belt than they would the purple belt, and I think they see the belt, they see the belt as how good you are on the mat, and really it's not, because there's some black belts that they're not very good in the actual role. They're not technical. They're missing elements of the game, right? But their instruction is insanely good.
Right.
They're like, everything is just so polished in their instruction. They can explain things that you wouldn't even think of, But when it comes to the mat time, and it could be they're 55 years old and they just don't move as well as,
Yeah.
And they got started late, so it's not like the 55-year-old black belt that started when they're 5, in Brazil. They got their black belt. They started when they were 45. It's a 10-year program, They
had a midlife crisis. They rocked it out. They got, yeah.
So the black belt doesn't mean that you can destroy everybody.
There's a lot of components that kind of comprise what a black belt is. While we're talking about that, we kind of talked about the white belt being the pit bull off the leash, your first 6 months, and then you get smacked down and you start to earn some stripes and you start to learn efficiency and you're getting little milestones. Then comes the blue belt. And I think you once told me blue belt is where everyone quits eventually, or it loses interest. There's this mile of work ahead of you, and you've done a mile of work behind you, and it's like life gets in the way or whatever.
Right. So I don't know why people quit at blue belt. I have my suspicions based on my own experience. When I got my blue belt, I don't know if it was the belt or if my black belt did something, but I didn't have any magic powers after I got the belt. And I was like, well, I'm a blue belt. I should be beating all the white belts. The focus on the blue belt for so long was so intense that when I got it, I was like, all right, cool. And then I'm looking around to the guys that were blue belts, now they're purple belts. I was like, okay, well, now that's my next goal, is to get to that level. Not get the belt, but at least get to, if I never got a purple belt, I could hang with the purple belts. So there was that where I got beat by white belts still. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you've been training for, I got mine at 18 months, and which is, I think, about average. And I'm losing to white belts that I shouldn't be losing to them, So I think it's an ego thing. Your ego's gone as a white belt because you can't have.
You're at a different ego place now.
Yeah.
Each
so now
level.
You're like, I'm better than the white belts, and then you get beat by the white belts, and you're like,
what the fuck?
Yeah. And it goes back to, well, it's not how good you are; it's how much knowledge you hold.
Right. Again, a lot more components than just actual technique on the mat.
Right. So you've got that aspect. But then also, because you're thirsting for that blue belt for so long, you want to get out of the back row when you bow in. You want to get 2 steps forward to join the blue belt. And you finally get out of that back row, and you're like, man, that was exhausting. And you look, and you're like, you got purple, brown, and black still. You're like, I got to go through all this bullshit again. And I think people are like, it's just too much.
It's too much. You start looking at lots of things, life, the financial, the stress of it, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like that Hell Week part where, do you really want this? Do you really want to stay in this and go to the next level of training? And which is kind of cool, because when I think about it, and I don't know this from firsthand experience, obviously, but just watching the purple belt is when you personally and those that you're training with come to agree that this person's committed. They got past that blue belt phase. They're committed. They fought their way out of it. They've jumped probably exponentially in their confidence, humbleness, their abilities, and you're really starting down that path of becoming a true artist in the game of, jiu-jitsu. It seems that way to me, watching it from the outside.
Yeah, and with purple belt, I haven't seen anyone get their purple belt and then quit.
Yeah.
Life might get in the way. There might be some
slow it down
and stuff that may cause them to leave the art. But for the most part, like, once you get your purple belt, like, that dude's going to get a black belt because it's the 10-year plan.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm over the hump. Yeah. And then brown belt just seems like, what you got, son? Do you really want this black belt? And that's really put you to the test. You know, it seems that way. It's like the brown belt is purple belt. He's okay. He made it. You're here. Welcome to the crew. And then the brown belt's like, if you want to lead the pack, son, you got to keep up with the racehorses. And
and brown belt is basically a black belt. Like every time I've rolled with a brown belt, like I don't see a huge difference between those. And
it's the instruction, you think?
It may be, but I'm always so impressed with brown belts because when they get their black belts, like they're surprised. And I'm looking at like I got manhandled, you know, by this guy for so long, and like I'm not surprised. Like that guy should have been a black belt before, you know. And that goes back to being humble, right? So you always think you're not as good as you are, and that's a safe bet in jiu-jitsu because there's always a bigger fish. You know, someone knows more than you, and they might be a lower rank than you, and that's okay.
And there's also a part of it too, the flexibility. I mean, there's a physical aspect too that we're all built differently. That you watch some of these folks that are really limber, flexible, and they'll do things to you, and they have half the size you do, and they literally fuck you up real fast.
Yeah.
And it seems like their arm shot underneath a place that you didn't even know a physical human being could do, but they did it somehow. And, you know, stretching and all these other, there's, I mean, just a million aspects to that. One thing that intrigued me, kind of talking about the instructional part, was watching you teach. The chemistry, the connection, and I've said this numerous times to you, is you 100% once you get a black belt need to teach. And at minimum, someday you need to open a gym because I think your students would get their money's worth. Let's talk a little bit about teaching. How does that affect you? What do you get out of teaching? Why do you do it?
So teaching is important to me, not just in jiu-jitsu, but just in general. One, it's fun. If I connect with the class, you're just riding this high. The problem with that is when you're chasing the dragon there, you'll have a class that just doesn't go well. Like the students, not jiu-jitsu, everyone wants to be there. Right?
Yeah, you're paying and you're interested to be there.
I've never had a bad jiu-jitsu.
So you're referring to
like the police world.
The police world of, and let me tell you, man, we have seen some shit in the last few years where, and I love our brothers and sisters in blue, but man, some of the stuff, it just, I watched it. Yeah. So you have that shit class and you know what I mean, where people aren't interested. And I say they're not shitty people. They're not interested in it. And it makes it hard, right?
Yeah. But also there are shitty people, you know. So let's not say that all cops are amazing and they're just having bad days. Some of them are just super negative, and that's part of the job. It's part of the trauma that we carry with us. Is anything new is bad.
Yeah.
And anything old is also bad. So
yeah.
I don't know.
What? Look at positive. We're always looking for negative, and it's ingrained. Yeah.
You have these students that they just don't want to be there, and they'll drag the class down. And it just takes one. It's just this poison in the class, and it ruins my day. And sometimes I'll catch it early, and I'll nip it in the bud, and that's it. And the rest of the class moves on. But sometimes they're just tenacious with their negativity, and by the end of it, I just want to go home. And
yeah, I remember you and I discussing on multiple occasions, and we both had to keep each other in check frequently, where it was you want to throw in the towel. You just want to. You've had one bad class after the next, and then a good class or a good student comes along, and you're kind of like, okay, there it is. This is why I'm doing this. So it is teaching. I love teaching. I love seeing the light bulb go on. And I obviously didn't teach the defensive tactics, but I could teach the tactics and, the decision-making side of things and how that happens. I love the light bulb comes on. I love when there's interest and there's questions. Can't stand when people are scowling at you like you just fucked their dog and they're not, happy about this. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what are we doing here? Why are you here?
Yeah, and I never really understood that. I know it's mandatory training, but if you hate training and you're always bitching about police work, what are you doing here?
Right.
There are other
Do you
jobs
think this career, especially now in the last 10 years, this career isn't going to demand exponentially higher amount of professional development? If anything, 2020 showed us, there is right now, this is not going away. And so you better get your ass in on the mat and we're not expecting you to be a black belt. We're just expecting you to train, to get better, to want to be better. And I think we still got a little ways to go in that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some buy-in. You saw it when our DT program came back online. Like, there was a lot of pushback. And now when we teach defensive tactics, I think we've got most of the good cops on board, and the other ones are coming. And then we also have a lot of the I don't want to say bad cops, but the ones that are negative, the ones that when I see them on the roster, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a bad day. But they'll show up and they're like, hey, how's it going? And like they're getting involved and they're starting to enjoy the training now. But it's taken a lot of time, and my soul has left the body.
Oh my God.
Who knows how many times. I remember you sent me home early one day. It was like an hour early. Like, just go home. And it was just such a horrible class. And I was so done. And you were there with your boss and his boss, and you could just see it in my face that I was like, I'm going back to patrol where it's easy, you know?
Yeah, I remember, kind of while we're on the teaching aspect, if you wear a badge in this game, and there are people that are willing to work their asses off to make you better, to get you home alive, to keep your paycheck coming every 2 weeks, and to keep you out of jail, you should cherish that, because I've worked in a time in law enforcement where there were trainers that could give a fuck less about you and anything else that you were doing. They were there because it was an easy assignment, it was a place to go chill the last part of their career, or whatever the case was. But when we were there was truly a group that was 100% committed. I mean, fucking blood, sweat, and tears, the whole deal, and literally all of those things. The end goal, I remember saying repeatedly, was get these guys and gals home. That's our goal, no matter what it takes. So it's good to hear that there is a shift. It is going slowly, it seems, in the right direction, and there's a lot more work to be done. I think personally jiu-jitsu is here to stay in law enforcement and across the country. Once people see the benefit of it and what they're doing for skill-wise and how professionally you can control someone without pulverizing their skull if you don't need to, or whatever the case is, I think there's a huge benefit to that.
For
I don't think it's going away.
The optics of using force, and I hate the word optics. It's just a way of saying, well, we're not doing that because it looks bad. And no use of force looks good. I've never seen one, from an outsider's view and say that looks magnificent.
Yes, we should do more of that.
Yeah, like you're punching some dude in the face.
Right.
I don't like the 20/20 hindsight where over the course of 2 months they're just dissecting this decision that took less than a second to make.
And even worse if it has public outcry.
Right.
Oh, the public that doesn't know shit about police work is upset. Well, therefore, it must be bad.
Yeah.
No.
And to change policy and make all these changes to training because there's some outcry because they don't like it, and the onus is never on the bad guy.
Yeah. If you don't like what happened to little Johnny, maybe you should be a better friend, parent, cousin, whatever to little Johnny, and teach him to not be a convicted felon piece of shit.
Right.
Fighting the police.
And even if they are a felon, even if they're a bad guy, if they comply with a lawful order, if they just put their hands behind their back and cuff up, a lot of this is just negated immediately.
I'd say the easy fix to all of this is just the world according to Danimal, is that the judicial system is completely broken in the sense of we seem to over-punish some of the minor things, and I'm being very broad, and we under-punish some of the things that should be punished. Extremes of locking someone up for a crack rock for 15 years and a pedophile, gets 6 months probation. And I'm being very extreme, but that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So if someone just thought, the judicial system isn't really hard to go one-on-one with, I'm going to not go one-on-one with this cop and just go to jail or, whatever the case is for the time being and fight this in court, I think it'd be a better result. Because let's just face it, in my opinion, that judicial system is where the fight is, not with us. But yeah, you're right. If they just comply, none of this would be an issue.
And I know they don't like that argument. The general public's like, cool, with police brutality, they're afraid of the police, and everything's so toxic, this relationship. And just in the world right now, everything is an enemy, right? So the media is an enemy. The police are the enemy. The drugs are the enemy. We're always at war at something, right? And fighting with the police, like it doesn't end well, right? For either side, because either someone gets killed in the course of the use of force, or officers go to prison based on a poor decision. But the responsibility isn't just on the officer. It's on the person that's being arrested. Whether or not you agree with being arrested, whether or not you agree with the crime, should it have been a crime, we don't hold court in the street, and
we don't make the laws.
Yeah, I'm there to enforce the law, and you broke it. And I can understand if you're upset about like a jaywalking ticket. You're like, well, the light's way up there, and I'm just crossing. This is the business I need to get to. I get that. You're kind of upset, but if you elect these officials that say these things should be laws, that's not on me. It's on the public.
Yeah, change the laws,
right? So
change the politicians. Yeah,
the majority said this should be a law,
right? Through
representation. It's not me, and really, it's not me that they're fighting. It's the uniform that they're fighting.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
So it's that
very rarely do they know the person in the uniform, and that's why they're fighting. You know, I know that became a highlight in Minneapolis. Did he know? Was there a relationship between the two of them, and so on and so forth? But that is super, super rare. It's usually the person committing the offense and then the person enforcing the law. They don't even know each other, and it just doesn't go well.
Yeah, and with use of force, it's that position of power, right? So whoever has the power, that's who people don't like. So they don't like the police because they have the power to use this force. And so now you've got a good guy and a bad guy. If we're both the same, if it's two frat guys duking it out in a parking lot somewhere, cell phones are coming out, everyone's like, yeah, this is great. But you give one of those guys arrest powers, and like, oh, that's police brutality.
Right, the whole world erupts. Yeah, no one's getting involved in the two frat guys, but they'll certainly have their peace of mind when it comes to a uniform involved. So, little tangent on that, but needless to say, defensive tactics, particularly probably some ground survival skills related to jiu-jitsu, wrestling, anything in that category is probably going to be more prominent in police training, I would say. And it should be 100% for lots of reasons. Stress management, physical, stamina, increasing your physicality behind that, as well as your talent to do certain technical things. So you're going to continue to keep training for a while until they tell you to go away, or what's your plan? For on the law enforcement side.
To be honest, I don't want to say I'm done, but I am getting more and more fed up with the way things are going. I feel like my opinion doesn't really matter. It's they want to hear their opinion in my voice, you know. So when new policy comes out, they've already made up their mind, and then I don't want to say I feel used, because it's my job, right, to teach and to put a message out there. But it is kind of disheartening when something comes out and they haven't asked you, they haven't consulted you, and you're supposed to be the expert.
Much less have they attended the training. Let's go there.
Yeah. If it's defensive tactics, there's a few of the upper echelon that will show up.
Right.
And they've got good attitudes. And I think that goes a long way with the troops, where they see an assistant chief, in their captain in there, and they're actually trying. But, you saw it. You've got a captain, assistant chief, like, hey, great training, I'm going to go sit out.
Yeah,
so everyone
I'm too cool for this, but I can judge the fuck out of you on paper, on your video camera. Yeah, it used to drive me crazy. You know nothing about what we're doing. You haven't even tried it, but yet you're going to crucify anyone for the techniques that they employed, and then question the instructors about it. And this is a straight shot to those people. I don't really give a fuck if it offends them. And this isn't the trainer speaking. This is Dan, the retired cop. If you're going to judge people, get your fucking ass in the room and train. And if you can't do that, get out of the fucking business, period. And I'm calling you out, straight out. That's just the way it is. If you're going to be a leader, and that's the problem, they're not. They're a manager. They're not a leader.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So training, you're kind of at the decision-making point of, where do I want to go with this?
Well,
and it's not because you don't like training anymore. It's just you don't like what training has become specifically for you.
Yeah, when politics get involved, it's troubling, right? Because I don't think there's any science behind some of the policy. There might be. I don't know. I'm not a manager, I'm the lowest rank on the totem pole. So I think I'm just once we get back into more training, because COVID really shelved a lot of stuff, and I think once we get back out there, my opinion will change. But right now everything's so stagnant, and I'm worrying about stuff that I can't change, and really I shouldn't, because it's beyond my span of control, and if you let that get to you, then it just kind of eats you up inside.
Yeah, you just take it one day at a time. Personally, you're going to keep training. You're going for the black belt, right? You're in this to win this.
Oh, yeah.
And are you eventually going to teach and maybe entertain the idea of your own gym?
I am an instructor at my gym. I just run a fundamental class on Saturdays. Eventually, yeah, I'd like to open up an affiliate, or even partnership with the head black belt. Because I drive 45 minutes to my gym each way. And when I get off of work after a long day, because I train at work too,
right?
I hold classes there, so cops and firefighters can come train, and I might hold one class, might hold two, and then I've got to teach recruits defensive tactics. So like all day, I might be in the mat room, and then I'm looking at this 45-minute drive. I'm like, okay, I can either take a nap or I can go get mauled at the gym. And sometimes the nap wins out. Sometimes like, nope, I'm gonna go get mauled.
Yeah.
Work is always in the way right now, so it'll be nice when work is actually just the gym.
Yeah, well, I can tell you firsthand experience of, when I was at work and I was trying to make this coffee business something, and really didn't know exactly where it was going to go, but knew what I wanted. It was hard. You had a lot of responsibility. And now that I devote all 80 hours of my work week to this, I fucking love it. Like, I wouldn't change a thing. Like, I got home last night and I was exhausted, and it was worth 100% of it. I think your life comes back to you, your soul, comes alive, and we're doing the things that we want to do. So I can see leaving law enforcement, when it's time, and then going to the gym, dude, you will see just a dramatic change in your being and who you are. So training and I think, from my perspective, that would really be a place to be, because you just create a good environment where people want to have fun and learn, where even when you're getting your ass kicked and you're down on yourself, you're self-critical, you seem to turn that into you have a very unique way to turn that into something positive. Like, tomorrow will be a better day. Tomorrow, the next round, that was round 3, round 4, and round 5. You'll be more tired, but you'll do better. And so I think you have a unique ability to do that, and you should, for you personally and for those around you, and even create, a program where law enforcement or first responders, military, can get that training that they need with someone that has a background in it, so I think that's important. So, parting words.
Get out there and train. Jiu-jitsu.
Get off your ass and train. And he's speaking to me, actually. Yeah. My fat ass needs to get in the gym.
I think jiu-jitsu is a kind of a magic pill. I weighed 275 pounds when I started. Just a big fat midnight cop. Didn't train. I'd lift because I thought that was important. No cardio. Mm-hmm. And you get in fights, and
all that lifting didn't really matter.
No, it's just more weight to throw around, more energy to expel. But I got duped into going to the gym. My boss at the time was he was in Bellator, and he was planning for a fight, and he kept saying, "Hey, why don't you come to the gym?" I'm like, "No, that's dumb. I'm not rolling around with other dudes."
I think that was my exact words to you.
Yeah. And looking at it, you're like, that's the dumbest thing I can do is go do it. Like, what am I going to get out of that? I'm a big dude. I can handle myself. So when I got to the gym to watch, he hands me a gi. He goes, "Go put this on." Mm-hmm. And reluctantly, I was like, "All right, I'll wear your little combat pajamas. It's fine." And he hands me this belt. I'm like trying to put it on backwards. And
you're like, fucking tying yourself up in it. Yeah.
And so a blue belt had to come over and fix me. And then I rolled one round. That's all I rolled that day. I got absolutely destroyed physically. I couldn't get out of his. It was a buddy of mine who was also a copman in my squad named James. And it was a 5-minute round. 4 minutes I spent in his closed guard. He did nothing but keep me there. And I'm trying to muscle out of it. And he's telling me, he's like, "You gotta calm down." I was like, "You don't tell me what to do." I outweigh you. I'm bigger than you.
So that is a very common conversation between a upper belt and a white belt. You need to calm the fuck down. Yeah. Slow down.
And
You don't tell me what to do, mister.
Like, for whatever, I was like, I know I can't punch him, but like, how do I get out of this death trap? And it's closed guard, you know. And eventually, I just told him, I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And so he let me out of his guard. I just sat on the sideline, like panting,
In a bucket of shame.
yeah. I was like, all right, there's two ways to go from here. I can leave and never come back, or I can go sign up. So I went and signed up.
Yeah. Takes a lot of courage to do that, to look at your deficiencies, your inadequacies, whatever you want to chalk it up as, and say there's room for better. So I think a great way to end this is just, we all have them. It's just, do you have the emotional intelligence to recognize it and come forward with it and do a little better? So whether this is you as a person that we're talking to, or you as a cop or a first responder or military, it is important that you look at yourself in all aspects. And I'll tell you what, I've experienced a lot of things, and there's two things that really brought to light that you're not as good as you think you are. And that's working on a SWAT team, and then that's jiu-jitsu as well. Group atmosphere, and then a skill set. So they're kind of different in that aspect, but they both shove a big humble pie right down your fucking throat, and there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
Now, what you do with that, you either choke on it, or you swallow it in and you take it in and you go, all right, I'm going to be better out the backside of this, and how you do that. Jiu-jitsu is a great sport, and it's fairly affordable, like any other gym, whether you go to kickboxing or CrossFit. They're all in that $150 a month range, approximately.
Yeah, 100, 150. I mean, if you're in San Diego or LA, there's some big time gyms. It's $300 a month, but just your local one should be fairly affordable. There's also a program. It's Adopt a Cop, BJJ. If the gym participates, it's free to you. This organization will pay I think it's $50 a month, and you just have to post on Instagram that you're going,
that you're trying to be better and be better for your job. Yeah,
it's like once a week you take a gym selfie. They'll pay your way till you get your blue belt, and then as a blue belt, an officer with a blue belt is super dangerous.
Yeah.
And like, looking at a blue belt now, where I'm at, like, I still get submitted by blue belts. Like white belts that catch me every now and again. If you look at a blue belt compared to a new white belt, which is, the bulk of the population, 95% of the time, you're going to have zero issues as a blue belt dealing with the general public, and it's gonna look like you're not doing anything.
Right.
It's this Hogwarts magic thing that you do, and you're controlling them. You're just
everything about how you present yourself. You're not screaming at someone. You're just very monotone, very matter of fact, very smooth. I love watching videos, and I can tell right away this person is a trained person that's been on the mat, either a wrestler or, most of the time it's jiu-jitsu. You can see it when they go to arrest someone. You're like, holy shit, that was smooth and clean and professional and effective. And so it does pay. It does pay to do that. There are programs in affordable gyms. Now, the point is, do you have it? Do you want it? Are you going to sustain this career? So those are the questions, you have to ask yourself as a user in this. Is it, and I don't think you have a choice anymore if you're wearing a badge. I don't think you have a choice but to find some way to train and improve yourself. The average agency training ain't going to cut it, no matter how much. We had the best program in the country, I think, a top tier, and it still wasn't enough. You have to do something on your own. Yeah,
it's all time on the mat. So if you just stick around and your agency's like, all right, we have an hour of defensive tactics this year, it's not enough. You can show a new technique, and I like to revisit when I teach. Every so often, you're training the same technique, so you can get more drill time, and then it just kind of refreshes their memory. Oh yeah, here's this technique, because I've forgotten all sorts of techniques over the years, and someone will hit it on me. I'm like, oh yeah, and then I just add that to my game because I forgot about it.
Right.
So it works out pretty well if you can just get on the mat. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you just drill, and you're just going to simulate murder, and there's no better way to start your day and then trying to get out of someone's choke.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I think being choked out is a really good thing once in a while
Yeah.
when you realize like I'm about to go out, or I am out. What just happened? Or so those that are against that, fuck you. Get choked out. It's good for you. It's good for the soul. It's good to wake up in a hot mess and not know where the last 10 seconds of your life just went. That's what keeps you alive. That's what keeps you fresh and on your toes. Now, I'm not saying you should do that every day, but occasionally it's good for the soul.
Yeah. And, you know, I've rolled with guys where I'm giving it my all, like 100%. And then by the end of the round, I've tapped 5-6 times. They're still breathing through their nose.
And they're looking at you like, what the fuck, son? Yeah.
Not anymore.
And I'll tell you what, one thing that we didn't touch on, there's some fucking badass ladies out there that can roll. I would, you know, so if you're this egotistical dipshit that thinks you can, you know, just toss this lady around on the mat who's, you know, and I could think of Manny's wife, Brenda, and I don't know many of them, but I'm sure you've encountered them. They're fucking badass. And in fact, their flexibility makes them even more dangerous. Obviously, females are highly flexible compared to males in just general terms physically. But, man, I've just watched them go to work on someone and their confidence level. And they got a chip on their shoulder, right? Yeah. I mean, and rightfully so. So don't ever discount the ladies out there. And if you're a lady officer, it's very good for the confidence factor that you can handle yourself and all that business too. With that said, good luck on your brown belt, my friend. You will be a black belt, and we'll definitely have you back when that happens, if not before, when life takes change for you and all that. But congratulations on hopefully the upcoming promotion to brown belt. You deserve it.
If it's a stripe, it's a stripe.
Yeah, either way, it's a next level. It's the next goal to the 10-year plan of the black belt. I was very happy to train and work with you. One of my closest friends. We've been through a lot together. I think probably how different this last year has been. Almost a year ago, about this time, I was done. That was it. We had hit rock bottom for me, and it was time to go. And so, a year and some change probably there's some different things to really look at in life and what it can do for you. And so I'm in a way different place than I was a year ago. But I appreciate your service to the military, your service to the law enforcement community and the community we live, and also appreciate your friendship.
You bet. Thanks.
With that said, that ends my interview with Cat Turd. See ya.